As my last meeting, so I don't know whether that means people enjoying the sunshine more, or perhaps they're a bit less panicky than people felt 2 weeks ago. I think a few people will perhaps just join us as we go on, but we'll make a start. So first of all, thank you very, very much for coming, everybody. I appreciate your patience and the fact that you've pre-registered this time, but there may be people in this room that weren't able to get into the Carpen meeting, so I apologise for that. Clearly, an awful lot more people came than I was expecting. So it's good that we've got the opportunity to do this again today. And thank you so much to Duxford for letting us use this room. I feel so lucky that we have these facilities in our constituency and organisations that are here to support, so thank you. Right, I thought perhaps, one other thing to say for Antony. He'd like us on Twitter. One of my constituents and a friend from Queen Edith is going to very kindly video the proceedings today. So if any of you have friends that haven't been able to come, I'll post this on the website so they can see everything that we discussed today. And you'd like us to tweet under the hashtag EUCamRef.
CamEU.
Sorry, I got it right. CAMEUREF. So if anybody wants to tweet on Twitter, if you've got friends who are following it, then that's the hashtag. So the purpose of today, so clearly things have moved on considerably, even, gosh, they say a week's a long time in politics, and now I know why. In the 2 weeks since I last met with residents, and what I thought would be useful if I updated you on kind of where government's at, their thoughts, plans. Obviously, as every minute passes, we have new ministers, new cabinet ministers in place, and of course, a new prime minister. So today I'll tell you what I know, tell you what I don't know. It's an opportunity for you to ask any questions, share any concerns you've got. Anything I can't answer, Natalie is going to make some notes. So if we don't catch you straight away, perhaps come and find Natalie afterwards or take your contact details. We've got some forms you can fill in if you don't get your question answered today, and we'll come back to you individually. But most importantly, it's about, for me at least, the community coming together, because it's been a seismic shock, I think it's fair to say, the result of the referendum for a lot of us. So it's about us as a community coming together and trying to find a route forward, and what do we do? So, what do I know? What don't I know? Well, I know we've got a new Prime Minister. And I have to say I'm so pleased. I don't mind admitting, quite worried and concerned by the thought that it might have drifted on through the summer. And given the not overly wonderful reputation that MPs have as it is, which has obviously toileted yet further in the last few weeks, the thought of us all going on our jolly recess while the country was supposed to sit and wait for a new Prime Minister to be put in place, I thought it would have been just absolutely unacceptable. So I think, difficult though it would have been, I'm sure, for the other candidates in the leadership race, I think they absolutely did the right thing to drop out, so that we now have Theresa May as our Prime Minister. And you will, I'm sure, all have seen it in the press. She has been incredibly clear from the outset. Brexit means Brexit. And the appointment of her cabinet, some of the people she's chosen, we can all speculate about the new appointments of the Foreign Office. But broadly, we have certainly some new cabinet appointments around Secretary of State for Brexit, Secretary of State for International Trade. Clearly she's putting in place immediately a team to get out there and negotiate and build a different deal for the UK. So, first thing to say, and I did the same at the Carpen meeting and I'll do the same again now. I'm pleased there aren't too many people on the front row that can throw rotten tomatoes at me, though I'm sure you'll have a good aim from the back if anybody wants to, but I want to get some of those elephants out in the room straight away. That the first referendum, some of us might not like it. We might think, well, was the Leave campaign based on untruths? All of that aside, the referendum stands. You know, for me, it's very important that democracy is democracy. And there were no provisions in the original referendum legislation around turnout or margins of majority. The result stands. And Natalie and I have dealt with just an incredible level of email inquiries from constituents worried about the result, and a lot of kind of legal arguments. Well, Heidi, what about Article 50? What about the European Communities Act 1972? Can't MPs vote against that? Can't we stop it? And Natalie spent on my behalf an awful lot of time talking to constitutional experts in the House of Commons. We have a phenomenal library facility there with the country's best experts in every subject you can think of. And so I wanted to perhaps get some of the misnomers out of the way, maybe. That, will MPs, Article 50, I'm sure you all know, that's the starting gun. That's the thing that will trigger Bingo, 2 years to negotiate, we're out of the EU. Will MPs vote on that? Can we stop it? And the simple answer is no. There is a petition going around that many in this room may have signed. I think we're up to over 4 million signatures now of people who want to debate or request for a debate in the House of Commons over Article 50 and triggering and starting that trigger gun. A debate will be scheduled, I have no doubt at all. I have no reason not to suspect that, and I would support that debate, and I would of course participate in it. But what's important to realise is that debate would just be that, a debate. It doesn't have legislative weighting, it doesn't change anything. It would be, I think, an opportunity for MPs from all constituencies around the country, and let's not forget, of course, that the majority of constituencies did want to come out. It would be a debate about how people feel and their worries, their concerns. They can shout from the rafters about how, many of us maybe think we shouldn't be coming out of the EU, but it is just that. Any vote at the end of it means nothing. It would need a new Act of Parliament, a separate bill for the government to change course and have a second referendum. And given the clear language that we've heard already from Theresa May, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Now, I'm sure as the questions open up later on, there'll be many of you who want to challenge me on that, but I would rather be honest, direct with you. It's not me being a coward, it's not me not standing up to government, because if any of you know me a little bit, you'll know that that's not something I shied away from in my first year already, but we have to be pragmatic, and I want to focus on the future and what we can achieve. So that's kind of some of the legal stuff. The negotiations, well, David Davis has been appointed Brexit Secretary of State, and he's already said that he doesn't feel Article 50 should be triggered straight away. He thinks there should be some lead-in time. And that again is where a lot of people have emailed me, what kind of model, a Norway model, a Switzerland model, what should we have? Single market, tariff-free trade, and all of that, I think the bones of that have got to be pulled together before we trigger Article 50. Because otherwise, once that clock starts ticking, that's potentially 6 months we could waste out of that 2 years while we're still considering what kind of the right model is for us. But clearly, everything needs to be thought about. Things that have become very apparent to me here in South Cambs, aside from some of the more obvious things like access to funding for research, for universities, agricultural funding, there's some of the smaller things that unless you work in that profession might not occur to you, regulation of drugs. How we have patents, how intellectual property, some of the stuff that if you're working in that industry is absolutely paramount. So all of this needs to be built into the strategy of what kind of model do we want, and then his view is then we would push for Article 50. And I'm trying to find positives out of this, because we have to. Who knows? This should be the wake-up call that the EU perhaps needed around its bureaucracy. Maybe, just maybe, it won't be a Norway model, a Switzerland model, maybe it'll be a Great Britain model. Something that's better. Something that maybe shakes up the EU and it becomes the model that the EU takes forward for other nations. Because one thing we can say for certain is this referendum vote, boy, has it opened a Pandora's box. And there are many countries out there, ethnic nations, who are now thinking, oh, well, what does that mean for us? So, there could be an opportunity there. During the 2 years, once that trigger is pushed, and from now until the lead time until that trigger gun goes off, nothing changes. The funding for agriculture, for science, all the things that we and our businesses and employees enjoy, right to freedom to movement, study, travel, all of that is absolutely the same. Nothing changes whatsoever. And of particular relevance to us in a scientific community as we are in South Cambs, the Horizon 2020, which is sort of the European Union's flagship scientific research body that provides grants, they're open for business. They're still saying, come forward, come for grants. Nothing is changing at all. Probably the most important thing, I think, or certainly for me, is about how people feel now through this process. Because we have a huge number, 11%, just to give you an idea, 11% of Adult's workforce are from outside the UK. The national average in NHS is 6%. So we have far greater, and in our scientific communities as well, agriculture, perhaps more in the north of the county, we have more than other areas do in terms of immigration, which does always make me smile slightly. given that we understand, broadly speaking, the value of it and that we want to keep it, but that aside. All those people have to be made welcome. You know, touch wood, I haven't, no that's not true, I heard of one incident in Morrison's in Camborne of a Polish lady being told to go home. I picked that up anecdotally, but broadly speaking, I've not heard of any racial incidents. If you do hear anything, if your friends hear anything, we stop it, we camp it down straight away, and that's what the police are here for, tell the police, because that's unacceptable. And we all have a role to play in making those European colleagues in our businesses, in our communities, in our villages, and make them feel welcome. Now, there's been quite a lot of pressure put on before we had the Prime Minister in place, actually the candidates, as we had 4 or 5 candidates going for the Prime Minister position, wanting them to come out and make a statement of, yes, you EU citizens who are here can stay here. And there was this language about bargaining chips and we shouldn't be using them. Theresa May has never used that phrase. For those of you that are interested, if you look on my website, I actually made a speech in the House of Commons last week, I think it was about 10 days ago, on that topic, that we have to really work hard to make sure that the language is right and that we protect those people because they're absolutely welcome here and we need them. Admirals would fall over tomorrow. Some of our best scientific research organisations would fall over tomorrow, so we have to absolutely make sure that these people feel welcome and are welcome here. Just as a minor thing, just for you to bear in mind, if any of you have got friends, neighbours or work colleagues who are worried, if they've been here 5 years, they automatically have a right to permanent residence. And that's one of those little things of existing legislation that kind of gets a little bit lost when people are upset and they're emotional. There's currently, as I understand it, a £65 fee. It's a transactional fee. I'm going to talk to the Prime Minister about whether we can waive that or at least reduce it. It's a small little thing, but I think it's a gesture perhaps that suggests to people we want you to know that you're very, very welcome here and we'll do whatever we can to make you feel that that's the case. But clearly, if we are, I'm hoping now that we do have a Prime Minister formally in place and she's starting to have conversations with 27 other states. We've got Nicola Sturgeon, obviously who she's meeting already. We do, where we can, of course we want strong leadership from our new Prime Minister to settle the mood of the country because it's been ripped apart. We have rifts in our communities and there's a nastiness that's crept out that perhaps none of us knew was really there. And I understand why people want her to come out with a statement that EU citizens can stay here. But we have to always remember that we have British citizens living in EU countries who need that security too. So clearly it's a two-way street and she has to develop that relationship with the EU. For me, and it's what I said in my speech, I think one of the best things that the Prime Minister, Theresa May, could do is almost set a terms of reference for negotiation. Whatever happens, Juncker, if it is Juncker, whatever happens in this, are we going to look after people? Look me in the eye, my people, your people, European people, can we agree? And I describe them in my speech as the children. We should be the responsible adults, the politicians. This is the divorce that we've created, and we should be looking after them. And I think that would set the tone as to how the negotiations would proceed. My role, I obviously here today is to take your questions, but I am settled, uncomfortably so, but settled in the view that Brexit needs Brexit. So my role is to fight for what we need. South Cambs, the City of Cambridge and the City of London should be at the core of our EU negotiations. We are the economy. We are the powerhouse, we are the brains, we are all the reasons that we have so many people from Europe living and working here. So that, for me, gives us an incredibly strong negotiating hand. So we should be at the heart of it. And that's why, and there will be questions, I'm sure, am I being lily-livered? Should I be standing up to the Prime Minister and telling her we should have a second referendum? Well, yes, I can make a thorough nuisance of myself. It's not something I'm uncomfortable with doing. But we have to bear in mind that if I do that, do I risk us having that rightful place at the negotiating table? Being a pain in the side is great, but it doesn't win you friends, and that's the risk we have to think about. And locally, it's building a team, and I've already started to do that. I've had 2 meetings already with leaders from our 2 universities, from the science and research organisations around the constituency. We're going to do some cross-sector work with scientific businesses in London and Oxford, working as a sector, not just as a region. But we need to build that negotiating team that understands what the needs are from our businesses and our communities. And I'm hoping some of that might come out today. If there are specific things in the areas that you work in, things that you think might get overlooked, that's what I want to hear. Because I want to come away over the next couple of months with a wish list of all the things that we want to negotiate over the next few years. So, that's an opening kind of out there. The elephant is out in the room, and I'd be very happy to take questions. We don't have roving mics, but I think the acoustics are pretty good. So if anybody has a question, then please put your hands up and I'll do my best to answer.